Hey, what is going on? This is Warren from the Rhapsody Piano Studio. Today, I'm going to be talking about, sorry, it's been about a couple weeks since I've done a live stream, so a little bit rusty here. But we're going to be talking about the difference between practice and performance. And the reason I wanted to talk about this today, the idea is a little fresh in my mind because my students actually had a recital last week. And one of the things that's really difficult for them to get their heads around, to really to really think about is the mindset between practicing piano and performing piano, because it's a totally different thing. So just had a few discussions, and sometimes I learn something every time they play and perform, because it's sometimes feelings of pain come back for me from when I was doing this. So I'm going to just discuss a few of those differences. Actually, there's actually not a lot of differences, so I think this video is going to be short and sweet, because the main difference, the only difference which I could really think about between practice and performance, actually two differences, is usually the way people think about it, about a piano recital, piano performance, and also that there's another difference too, and is that of control. All right, well, let's discuss the first one, which is control, which is the second one actually. Let's discuss the second one first. So it's this idea of control. And the reason why just people in general have a hard time with this concept is that when you're practicing and you control pretty much everything, the amount of time you practice, when you practice, where you're going to practice. Like, you see my room here. This is where I practice every single day. So that environment doesn't really change from time to time. Practically everything is set up in with a sense of control. You control everything about the way you practice. While in a performance, that is totally different. It's almost like, it's not that you don't have any control, but a lot of variables that you have at home, it's just not the same. You don't have that control too. Because one common refrain that I hear from time to time, actually not from time to time, a lot of the time, especially when students are starting out, is that even when they come to the lesson, they're like, oh, this went so much better at home. Well, if you think about it with common sense, of course it went better at home, right? It's not the same thing. So basically, in a performance, it's a different environment. So there's another thing too. You can't control the environment which you're practicing in. Plus, things like distractions. Actually, one of my students the other day when she had a recital, we had our student recital last week. Not just her, but a bunch of other our students together. There's one spot, and she's not really doing anything particularly challenging, but it's still, to them, it's still and we're just talking about basic level students, right? This is still a scary experience for them. They're still nervous and things like that too. Well, when she was playing, and remember, there's this one song she's played like 100 times, and for that particular reason, that instance, she's just totally blanked out, and it was kind of I had to ask her to restart. It got that bad, but I'm glad it happened, because it's a learning experience for her anyway. And then when we asked later, like, why did that happen? She said she got distracted because she heard a sound or something like that, right? And then she listened to that sound, and her focus she got off focus. So, it's the same thing when you're outside in an environment. You don't know what's going to happen, so you have to kind of prepare to have that mindset that you're going to go in to this type of recital performance or whatever. Something could happen. A phone could go off, right? Someone could drop something. You hear a loud cough or sneezing, things like that too. So sometimes that's what they're not prepared to deal with. And it doesn't matter how many times I try to prepare them in a lesson. Usually they kind of have to learn through the school of hard knocks. They have to learn on their own. So, one of the things I tell them is, like, when you go into a performance, you have to be ready for anything. Anything could happen. Not anything, but usually what I tell them is that something unexpected is going to happen. And when you have that mindset, you're kind of concentrating totally, focused in a different way. So if you think about why this is so hard, it's just that human beings, what do we tend to gravitate towards? What do we want generally, more or less, in our life? We want a schedule, we want a routine, we basically want certainty. We want to know what we're doing at any times of the day. When you go in, you want to know that if you have a job, that you're working for an exact number of hours. You want to know exactly how much you're going to get paid by the end of the month. Because think about it, if your paycheck every month was as a different random number, I don't think you would be happy with that. It would make you feel very uncomfortable. So we have a hard time dealing with uncertainty, uncertain situations, which is what a performance is all about. Sometimes you have a good one, sometimes you have a bad one. So that's one thing you have to be prepared to deal with. You're going into a piano performance, it's an uncertain environment. You can have an idea in your head, but it might not go according to plan. You have to be able to deviate and adapt, and that's what will help you in the long run with the performance. One of my older students who he performed something a very scary piece, which is Chopin Revolutionary Etude. And even with him, I was discussing, like, how did you think your recital went? And for him, it was funny because I remember when I asked him before he had a performance on that day of, I was like, oh, how are you feeling? And he was like, oh, I feel pretty good, And then part of me, as soon as I heard that, I was a little bit worried. I was like, okay, I hope it's gonna be okay. But actually, when he started playing, he was super nervous, took everything way faster than it usually should be, but he got through it, right? And it was funny because what he told me later was like, yeah, I was fine up until when I went up on stage, right? So he wasn't prepared to have those feelings of nerves, right? He was prepared, like in his own mind, he was visualizing things to go a certain way with performance. And then when he went up and he started feeling clammy and nervous all of a sudden, he wasn't prepared to deal with that because he wasn't expecting it. It was outside of his control, right? So if I told him to, next time you just have to learn to let go of whatever you're feeling and just totally be involved in the experience with your emotions and stuff like that too. I mean, we can get like, we talk about this for hours. It's like, things like resistance where you're trying not to feel nervous and things like that too. But it's basically, it's outside of your control. It comes down to control. You don't know what you're going to feel like. You might miss a note here and there. Like you might actually skip a passage. You might forget a spot. So things like that are going to happen when you're under pressure. Because here at home, if you're practicing inside a practice room, you can have the best performance possible. It's totally different when you actually go out there on stage, all right? Some things that will help with this idea, just a couple of concepts I was discussing with some of my students who are having a hard time kind of accepting it. These two things, for me, if I knew these, it would have totally helped me put less pressure off the performances. One thing is that when you're doing a performance, the only thing you can do is make a forecast. And what I mean by that is it's not the same thing as a prediction. And usually if you study the idea of prediction, human beings are terrible at it, yet we continue to try to make predictions, right? What's better is you try to make a forecast. So you think about making a forecast, right? Like let's say you're forecasting the chance of rain tomorrow, and if you watch the Weather Channel, they're gonna say something like, there's gonna be a 70% or 65% percent chance of precipitation. That's a forecast. You're never going to hear them say, it is definitely going to rain tomorrow, or it's definitely not going to rain tomorrow. That's a prediction. And sometimes with these students, they're trying to make a prediction about the performance. Instead, if they think about, okay, there's a 70% chance that I might, have a good performance, a 30% chance, it might be kind of scary to think about it that way, but 30% chance it might not go according to plan. And that's also, thinking in probabilities. You never be 100% certain, especially with something like a performance, right? Another way to think about it is if we're talking probabilities, and we're talking about the performance itself, they only have 2 recitals a year. That's not a lot of time not a lot of opportunities to perform. So one thing that also helped my older student to put things into perspective was, well, it's only one chance to perform. If I gave you 10 performance chances, right, and the only way you could give you 10 performance chances is if we did 10 recitals, which is not going to happen, right? If I could, I would. That would be pretty cool. But 10 recitals. If I ask them like, how many of those you think you're going to get, a pretty decent, pretty good performance, right? It'll be like 7 or 8 of them. So 2 of those won't go really as well as you want. It won't be disastrous, but it won't go according to plan. But 7 or 8 of them are going to go really well. But the problem is you only have 2 chances in an entire year. It's a lot of pressure, right? Imagine, and I just talked about this example with some of my other students. Imagine like you're taking a course, like a class in college, right? Or school, and you didn't have any homework, you didn't have any tests. Instead, all you had was one final at the end of it. That's kind of like the pressure you feel when you don't have a lot of chances to perform. So you can't, it's impossible. He only has this performance opportunity for entire spring, entire half of the year. You're going to put a lot of pressure, a lot of focus on it. So that's part of the issue. So the less opportunities you have with that, the less chance you kind of have of things going to according to plan, right? We're in what, NBA finals, right? It's a semifinal. So how many games do they have? They get to win 4 out of 7, right? It's not just one game and that's it. So that would be incredibly difficult. So in that sense, with the NBA, it becomes like you could think from a term of terms of probabilities, right? The experts forecast them a chance to win, like, if they're down by 2 games, they have like a 30% chance to win or something like that too. If they're up by 3, they have like an 80% chance. So you can use that as a prime example. But yeah, anyways, I mean, that's basically all I wanted to talk to you guys about today. I find this fascinating. This is something that I always think about, trying to perform myself. So just a few thoughts I wanted to share with you guys. I don't want to go too much into detail, because otherwise it's going to be, I'll turn it into a whole presentation on how to properly perform, which I might go into detail. Like maybe it'll be a future topic for a live stream, something about, like, trying to give you the tools necessary and the way to prepare to have a good performance. But that's another topic altogether. But in conclusion, just really don't think about performance and practicing as the same thing. They're not. They're totally different things. You can't approach both in the same manner. And also with the whole performance thing too, you just realize this. You use common sense. If you just get a lot of experience over time, you'll learn things on your own. The problem is we don't have a lot of performance experiences. When you do start to have more performance experiences, you'll start to realize some things that are kind of similar to practice, and hopefully you'll figure out a strategy or two to help you become a better performer. Okay? Anyways, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Thanks for joining me in this live stream that happens every Saturday. Except for next week, I'm taking some time off. So I will see you guys in 2 weeks for my next live stream on Saturdays. Hope to see you guys soon. If you have any questions about this, if you like this content, if you want me to, tackle future topics, please give me some feedback at, the video description, the links below. Would love to hear from you guys. In any case, that's it for today. I'll see you guys next time in 2 weeks. Happy practicing.